we are talking about solving quadratics by factoring. So factoring should sound pretty familiar. We just made an entire brochure on how to factor. And that's how we can solve quadratics. So when I say solve quadratics, it means we're going to find the roots, the solutions, the x-intercepts, zeros, all of those things that mean the same thing, okay? So solutions also mean roots, zeros, and so on, okay? And we can do this rather than graphing. Today in class we were graphing and looking for where the graph intercepted with the x-axis, and we said that those were the solutions. Instead of graphing, now we can do this by factoring. So we're going to start off with our first example, and we're going to find the solutions to this equation, y equals x squared plus 3x minus 10. We're going to do this by factoring. Couple steps we got to follow. First one is this. We have to set the quadratic equation equal to 0. Before we can factor, our quadratic equation has to be equal to 0. So instead of saying that this is equal to y, we're going to rewrite it, x squared plus 3x minus 10, and we're going to say it's equal to 0. Step 2, we're going to factor the left side. So we're going to factor this part right here. Now, if you remember, we have an app that we can do all the factoring in. So let's go ahead and take care of that. So we're going to go to apps. If my calculator will turn on, quit out of that. All right, let's go to apps. We go to Polysmelt 2. Let me move this out of the way. Okay. And then our polynomial root finder. We want to make sure that it has an order of 2 since we're looking at a polynomial x squared. Real, auto, yours probably says fraction, so make sure that fraction is highlighted. Normal, float, degree. And then we're going to type in the coefficients. So we have 1 for a, plus 3. I know yours looks slightly different, so you would just put in a positive 3 for 3x. And then minus 10, so you'll put a negative 10 for yours, because I know our screens look a little different. Okay. So we'll solve this. So normally when we solve this, we say, hey, well that means that it's a factor. There's 2 factors, and one of those factors is going to be x minus 2, because we switched the sign. And the other factor is going to be x plus 5. Okay. So these are the factors right here. But our end goal is not actually to find the factors. Our end goal is to find the solutions. Okay, so find the solutions. I want to have x equals something, x equals something. Here's how we do that. Step 3. We set each factor equal to 0. So set each factor equal to 0. So we're going to take each factor, so x minus 2, set that equal to 0, and then solve for x. Well, we just add 2, add 2, so x equals 2. Then we do the same thing with the other factor, x plus 5, set it equal to 0, solve for x. Subtract 5, x equals negative 5. So these two numbers, 2 and negative 5, are our solutions. So we would write our answer like this, x equals, and then we use curly braces, 2 and negative 5. Okay. But check out what our app does for us. Our app gives us 2 and negative 5. So for the next ones, we can actually cut out all of this work from here. Because if we just put that, that polynomial into our app, it's going to factor for us and give us our solutions directly. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Let's go on to number 1. So here's our quadratic equation. It's set equal to 0, which is good. It has to be equal to 0. And I'm just going to plug everything into my app. So I have 1x squared plus 4x plus 3. And let's solve. It tells me that the solutions are negative 3 and negative 1, or negative 1, negative 3. And that's all we have to do. You're just taking these numbers that they give you, those are the solutions. Okay? So we are looking for solutions, roots, zeros. So we're going to call these the solutions. You might also see them referred to as roots or zeros. These are also the x-intercepts. Okay, they all mean the same thing. And our app is going to give us those directly. I'll show you again what it looks like with number 2. So I'm going to clear out my coefficients. I've got number 2, so x squared and so on. So 1x squared plus 11x plus 24. It says our solutions are -3 and -8. That's it. X equals -3, -8. You might see it written as -8, -3. Both ways are fine. They mean the same thing. It's just saying that those are both the solutions. Okay, so you only have to write one of these, and that's it. Again, we just pulled those numbers from the solutions that our app gives us. So for the rest of these, that's all you're really doing. You're just plugging into the app and writing down the solutions. We'll do one more together. So let's say we're looking at number 3, coefficient 1x squared plus 1x minus 2 our solutions are -2 and 1. Okay. Now let's say, for instance, that you get a fraction. So this might happen on the next side of the paper, so we'll go over to those. So let's take a look at number 12. So for number 12, you can certainly put this in our calculator. So we have 8 would be A, this would be B, and then there is no C value. So we would just say C equals 0. So we could plug this in. We could say 8x squared minus 6x plus or minus 0. Okay, let's say we do that and we get these answers. We get 0 and 3/4. Well, that means that our answers are 0 and 3/4. If you get a fraction like this, when you're writing it as a solution, you don't have to do anything else. You don't have to bring the 4 in front of the 3, nothing like that. It's just if it asks for the solution, that's all you have to do. Now, you should be careful. Make sure that you're factoring out everything. You know, think about what you would factor out of this. We could factor out a 2x. We could factor out a GCF of 2x. So if we did that, we'd end up with 4x minus 3. So that's why this works. That's where the 3/4 comes from. And then if we set both of these equal to 0, we'd end up with x equals 0 and x equals 3/4. So that's why that works. All right, for the rest of these, you should be able to use the app. So just complete 11 through 16, as well as 4 through 10 on the previous page. All right, so you can plug in that app. All I'm looking for is solutions, just like this. Look out for the Google form.